Today, I will share with you how you can design a leadership program and how you can work with diversity and inclusion through the leadership program. I will share with you the learning design of a program where we really can increase the leadership culture in a company. I'm Emil Heilskov and I'm a learning specialist at Institute for Learning Design. And this knowledge that I will share with you is gained over leadership training during the last 10 years where I have conducted a lot of leadership programs. So hopefully this can inspire you to maybe rethink how you do leadership training where you work. So let's get started. To get the common understanding, we can start with a little historic view on the leadership training. A classic leadership training approach or learning design for leadership training is focused on normally 2-day leadership training courses. Let's say we have a 3-module leadership training with 2-day leadership training in each module. That gives us 6 days of training. The common way to understand this is that we take the managers and the leaders out for a training session in 2 days. When we evaluate the training, we do it at the end of the 2nd day. In that type of evaluation, we normally get a very high score. Often because no managers or no leaders would accept to have wasted their time. So we can see that leaders normally evaluate a training program higher than other participants, just because they don't want to have wasted their time and they will never accept that they have wasted the time. And this is something that is quite crucial, because when we come later on and begin to design the new approach, this is one of the barriers that we need to overcome, that managers have been wasting their time on classic leadership programs, or maybe not wasted their time, but they could have gained even more knowledge and even more skills out of the leadership training if they've just been designed in another way. Another thing with the classic way to design a leadership program is we have these modules and we have a learning curve that will increase over these 2 days and then decrease over time, and then we have the forgetting curve that will really decrease the learning output. Then we come with the next model where we can again increase, and then we have a learning curve that will fall because of the forgetting curve. And then we have this curved learning effect. Then we can begin to adapt this 40-20-40 methodology where we put in some e-learning before each model, or maybe some casework or micro-learnings between the different models. And if we put that in, we can begin to prepare the participants for each model. And with the casework, we can also maybe challenge the forgetting curve. And overall, it will help us increase the learning output of a leadership program. But we still don't have the optimum learning program. So if we focus on the experience learning effect, it will just have this curve learning output. And in the evaluation, we'll have a lot of these positive things in mind, saying it was a good course, it was more like a philosophy, I really think it moved me, so now I will go home and continue my leadership as I have always done. Because we know that leadership is something that we develop over time. We do not develop leadership tools, leadership skills on an event. Leadership is something that we can develop together with our employees. When we begin to see the people that we have in front of us, we begin to motivate them and we can see the reaction they have. We cannot do that on a classic leadership training course if it's just 3 events. But it's important to understand it. If we look at the classic approach to leadership program, we get good evaluations, but we don't get this concrete feedback on what to do different, because from a leadership perspective, everything will be constantly changing because it's people that we work with. So with that in mind, that leaders will not accept that they have wasted their time, and they will often give us good evaluation because we evaluate them on the end of day 2. With that in mind, we need to rethink how we can design a leadership program to make sure that we have diversity and inclusion as a part of the program, and we make sure that leadership program is something that happens over time instead of something that just happens on an event. So in a classic learning design, where we have the 2-day model and we use the 40-20-40 methodology, where we really can challenge the forgetting curve and we have some task before, then we begin to build a design. And if we just look at the pros on a design like that, then the pros on a design like that is there are time for development. There are no disturbance in the training because they are on a conference center. It creates network for the leaders between them. Most of the participants will be prepared for training. And with the 40-20-40, we can also break the forgetting curve. So there are a lot to gain from putting in 40-20-40 into a classic leadership program. There's a lot of pros. But if we look at the cons on this classic understanding of a leadership program, then it is that the training will be a burden for the organization. This training with 2-day programs will disturb the operation of a business unit. It's very difficult to see the impact when the training is designed over events. And in this classic training approach, there's only a little, if there is any, focus on diversity and inclusion. So there are some things that we need to address in a more modern learning design, and we can also build on top of all the pros we have from the classic learning design of a leadership program. But before we go into how to design this more modern learning program, then we need to address the pitfalls of a classic learning program. Because there is a lot of pitfalls in how we design learning programs. One of the pitfalls is that we are too ambitious on behalf of the participants. We are too ambitious about how many tools can we present for them on a 2-day learning event. If we put in too many tools, then they will be overloaded and they will never have a chance to take these tools and make sure that they can use it when they come home from this learning event. Another pitfall is that we put in an instructor that are too inspiring. It can sound silly, but an instructor that are too inspiring can challenge the output of a learning program. Because when you become too inspiring, maybe you speak too much or you inspire the participants too much in what they can do. And it will create a lot of intentions in us, but not that much action. It's just like when we go to a public speaking. And in this public speaking, we can normally become very much inspired. So the inspiration comes from the topic that the public speaker is speaking about. And we will also go from this public speaking with a lot of motivation. So we have new knowledge about a topic and we have a lot of motivation. If we use that knowledge and our motivation to go out and try, normally we will fail. And we will fail because we have not been trained in using the new knowledge. It's the same when we are in a leadership program with an instructor that are too inspiring, because then we will not be trained that much. That is a pitfall. If we just look at a learning wheel, then we have knowledge, skills, motivation, and action. And we need to make sure that our learning program consists of both knowledge building, skills training, motivation to do, and so we can put in all the intentions of doing things, and some action to use all this knowledge that we have gained. If just one of these are missing, we will not succeed in the leadership program and we will not succeed in creating better leaders. But we can still get quite high evaluations on the leadership program, even though there are one of these 4 that are missing. So the 2 pitfalls in a classic design is that we are too ambitious about what to put in and too ambitious on behalf of the participants, and the instructor is so inspiring that they like to hear their own voice instead of training the leaders in using all the skills. So what should we do with a modern learning program? We take the best from the historic approach, the best of the classic approach to leadership program, all the cons, all the things that we know is fantastic from the classic programs. Then we combine them with the new educational technologies and the new knowledge we have about human behavior and how we can work with learning curves and how we can challenge the forgetting curves in a leadership program. And at the same time, we try to eliminate the different pitfalls in a learning program. The methodology that we use is the learning loops. And learning loops can help us create another learning environment for leadership training. A learning loop consists of clear goals in the start, a clear output at the end, and a setup that are easy to measure. It is important to understand that there should be a clear goal for the start of each learning loop, because there should be a clear ambition and a clear reason why the managers and the leaders should participate in this training. And there should also always be a clear output, because when there is a clear output of a learning loop, then we can use the output in the next learning loop and build on top of it. We call that continuous learning. When we take an output from an earlier learning loop and build on top of it in the future learning loop, and then constantly just build on top of these learning loops that are constantly rolled on top of each other. That is for us continuous learning. A learning loop consists of 4 phases. The first phase is knowledge building. This is where we get a common language, let's say around motivation. Then we have the second phase, that is knowledge in practice. In the second phase, we, instead of just activate the new knowledge, we go out and try to explore that knowledge among our employees. Then we come to the third phase. This is our hybrid training. This is a sandbox training where we take the knowledge that we have gained in the first phase, what we have seen in the second phase, and use it in a safe environment. We call that the sandbox training. And we do that as a hybrid workshop in small groups with the managers. And then you have the fourth phase, which is the transfer phase, where we implement our new knowledge and take the output and make the output ready for the next learning loop. So a learning loop consists of these 4 phases, and each phase is quite important to understand that we can put in different methodologies to activate each phase. If we dig a little bit deeper to each phase, then the first phase is our knowledge building phase. This is where we can increase the knowledge and create a common language and a common understanding around the topic. A topic could be motivation, it could also be salary negotiation, it could also be work environment, it could be goal settings and things like that. All these classic leadership tools and leadership behaviors could be put in as a topic. In the knowledge building, we will build knowledge. Normally we can use e-learning to build this knowledge. We can design a 30 or 60-minute e-learning. But there is a pitfall here, because e-learning is not that inspiring to everyone. And there is a pitfall, because if the e-learning is not inspiring, then the whole program will fall to the ground. Because if I'm not inspired in the e-learning, I will not complete the other training parts in the knowledge and practice and the hybrid training and so on. So we need to make sure that we can make inspiring knowledge building. And this is where we should be focused on different modalities. So maybe in your organization, it's better to use podcasts. Maybe in your organization, we should use something third to activate this knowledge building part of a learning loop. It all depends on the organization and what people that are inside the organization. And it also depends on the topic that they should build knowledge around. In the second part, the knowledge in practice, we often use micro-learnings. Micro-learnings to create reflection upon the everyday work. Micro-learnings to help the managers see things in their organization when they move among their employees. Because the knowledge in practice part should be something that the managers can do while they manage their people. And in the knowledge and practice part, you should think about, in my organization, how can we distribute all these micro-learnings? How can we give the knowledge and these micro-learnings, these knowledge and practice small modules to the managers so they can use them while they manage the organization? Then we come to the third part, our hybrid training. The hybrid training is where we take the knowledge we have built and the knowledge we have seen from knowledge and practice, and then go into small groups. Normally we put 5 managers together in a small group in these hybrid trainings, where we make what we call a bubble of trust. In this bubble of trust, we create a small network. We know that managers are managers because they are responsible for their own learning path. We also know that managers can run a meeting. We also know that managers can follow instructions. That's why they are managers. So we make these self-facilitated workshops where the managers meet in these small groups, where they can share their experience with the topic that they have worked with during the knowledge building phase and the knowledge in practice phase. We call it a hybrid training because we will also be there. Maybe we are there online for the first quarter, and then we just check in over time in this workshop. A workshop normally takes 2 to 3 hours, and these 2 to 3 hours we have 5 managers that are working together in a sandbox training with the topic that they are trained in. So we have these small hybrid workshops, and they are so important because when we put people together, maybe we can use the leadership pipeline to make sure that everyone in the same group are at the same level. And we can also use other theories to put these groups together. The important thing is that we in each group try to put as much as diversity into the group. Just because we focus on diversity, we don't create a diverse group. We need to make sure that we also focus on inclusion. So in the inclusion phase, we make sure that everybody will have the same speaking time when they do the workshop. So in that way we can include all. This means that no one can sit there in the corner and hide during the program. Everybody needs to contribute to the output, and this will also help both these leaders that normally speak up and those that don't speak that much up to say and to listen and to reflect and to learn from each other, because we really need to learn from the difference between us, and this is what we can do with diversity and inclusion in a leadership program when we use this hybrid learning methodology. Another gain from using hybrid learning is that it's only 2 or 3 hours in a learning loop that they need to go together, and then they can go back and manage their people. If we look at the fourth phase, that is the transfer phase. This is where we implement the output and implement what we have learned in the sandbox training on the hybrid workshop in this topic that we have worked with. So a learning loop is a 4-phase learning loop with the knowledge building, knowledge and practice, hybrid workshop, and a transfer phase at the end. Normally each phase takes 1 or 2 weeks. So if you just look at how much time should a manager use on developing themselves and develop their leadership, then over these 4 to 8 weeks program, they will only should be set in a 2 to 3 hour workshop. All the other time is what we call asynchronous learning, where they can do it where it suits them in their work. So these learning loops are very flexible, and they will not put a burden on top of the organization. And these learning loops will help the managers train where they manage their people. We know that only 10% of what we can gain in knowledge and develop comes from formal training. 20% can come from peer-to-peer training or feedback, and 70% comes from doing our work. If we can take the training and put into the 70%, then we can really extend the output of a training program. So we need to make sure in the learning design that all the training comes as close to the real life, to the real management part as possible to extend the effect. And if we look at the part with the feedback, the 20%, we should make sure that some of the tasks that are designed in the knowledge and practice phase or in the transfer phase comes from peer-to-peer feedback and peer-to-peer work. So we can design tasks where peers are helping each other, challenging each other in how they manage their team, because it is in the front that we really can develop. Doing the programs that we have run, like this design with hybrid training and the learning loops, we have also experienced that there are 2 different models that are so important to also launch in the start of a program to make sure that this leadership program will become a success. One of the programs is what we call a quick win workshop, because all managers are using their time and think they are in a hurry. So if we start a leadership program with a quick win workshop where they find the time to do the training afterwards, then we can make sure that this leadership training will not become a burden. If we just put in a leadership program on top of what they are else doing, most of the managers will find it as a burden for their management field or their business unit or for themselves, and that can become very stressful. So let's start by helping them find the time to run this leadership program. Another important module to make sure that this leadership program will become a success is the how to study module. This way to work with knowledge building and knowledge and practice and hybrid workshop and transfer phases and outputs that we build on top of it and small groups that are in a bubble of trust and all this stuff that is new to everyone. So we need to learn them how to learn. We need to make a how to study module that are designed for the organization itself. So it addresses how mature are the organization for this new way to run training programs. So before you even start a leadership program like this, you need to define a how to study module and a quick win workshop. And then you can begin to use these learning loops and create this continuous learning environment where you develop your leadership, organization, and the management culture over time, and not just put them on a 2-day course where it will become an event. So why is it that we are still running leadership programs in the classic way? Why are we not using this new knowledge and all the tools and methodologies that we could use to create even better leadership programs for the future? Why are we not using them right now? It comes from the historic perspective. The decision makers that are making the decisions of running leadership programs, they have themselves been on the classic programs. They have experienced them, they are familiar with them, and they will never accept that they have wasted their time on those programs. So they will hang on to the classic or the traditional way of making leadership programs just because of their own belief of what is possible and are the organization mature enough for this new design. Another thing that I see a lot is the uncertainty whether the organization is ready for this or not. But they are ready for this. If you just put in the how to study module and you just help them all the way through, they are ready for thinking new ways to develop the leadership training. And even though that the decision makers often not have experienced this, but only have experienced the classic way of leadership training, then we can challenge them in rethink how leadership training should be done. I know that the classic way of leadership training has helped a lot of leaders get new perspectives on their leadership. It had given them new tools on how to manage their business unit. But if they have been challenged through a more modern design where we use the educational technologies to gain knowledge and activate that knowledge, they themselves could really have extended their learning over time. So hopefully this video could inspire you to rethink how you design leadership programs. We at Institute for Learning Design are running these programs. We are already experienced in how to build knowledge, how to use the phase of knowledge in practice to make sure that the participants that are coming into the hybrid training are prepared for the sandbox training. We are already familiar with how to do these sandbox training, where we can work in a safe environment to activate all the new knowledge. We are already familiar with how we can make the transfer phase, where we not only make an action plan, but we really implement the new knowledge and all the intentions that we gain on this course. We are familiar in how we can make the how to study modules and how we can make quick win workshops. All of this, we have gained knowledge around this. So if we can gain knowledge around all these topics and this methodology, I know that your organization also can do it. If we can understand how we can contribute to even better leadership programs in the future and can use this knowledge, I know that your organization also can. There's nothing that I have explained in this video that is new knowledge or new research. Many of the methodologies and the research that we build our learning design on is from the 80s and 90s, and it's just about learning psychology. We just put it together in a way where it really works. So I know if we can do it with our organization and run these programs, I know that you can do it. You just need to find out how to use modalities and how to create inspiring content in the knowledge building phase, how to design the program so it suits your organization, and how to mature your organization to a new way of working with leadership. And then also have the courage to challenge the whole organization in a leadership culture program over time, instead of just making the easy choice and sending them to a 2-day leadership course. So hopefully this video has inspired you to rethink how you can run leadership programs in the future. I'm Emil Heilskov. I'm a learning specialist at Institute for Learning Design. Thank you for watching.